Hello, this is Michael Cammack with Team Misconception, and today I'm going to be going over what I worked on for the first milestone in the last month of our final project. For this sprint, we essentially wanted to focus on balancing and kind of get an onboarding process going for our levels. So the sprint goal we made for this week was we want to focus on balancing certain progressions throughout the game and introduce the player to mechanics with an onboarding process while clearing up areas within the level. So I'm kind of going to go in order of things that I worked on. A lot of my tasks were bug fixes and tasks to just clean up my level. So let's start with the highest priority, which was the fireball. Now for this, there was kind of an issue with the fireball. Every time the player presses E, the fireball mechanic takes all of the player's mana and it takes 50 seconds for it to replenish. So to fix this, I need to adjust the value of the mana needed to use the fireball, adjust the value of mana consumed when using the fireball, and adding a cooldown timer so the player can't spam it when they just pressed E. So those are all things that I worked on for this bug. Now I'll go ahead and show that off. Okay, so I'm going to actually start up the game here, and once we load in, we'll be able to teleport over to the fireball pickup, which was added during this sprint. So we can go to where the boss room starts, pick up the fireball, and we can now use the fireball. So now at the top left, we have our mana, which is the blue. If we press E to shoot the fireball, it will take 50 mana to use. So I changed the value from 200 to 50 so it doesn't drain it completely. And I made it so that you need at least 50 mana in order to shoot the fireball. So I need some feedback to let the player know that there's a cooldown timer, but if I spam E, it takes a couple of seconds for the fireball to get off of cooldown. And we're out of mana, so it's below 50, we're not able to use any, but then once it gets to 50, the player is able to shoot it again. So that's how I kind of went and balanced that. Alright, the next task that I decided to work on also corresponds with the fireball, so I made those both highest priority, because if you weren't able to use the fireball, then you wouldn't be able to continue through the game at all. So for this bug, it was when the player shoots at the boss during the fight, it gets destroyed immediately. So I went ahead and jotted down the issues with the actual mechanic itself, but I also have a video here showing what that bug looked like. So whoops. So essentially when you would start the boss fight, he would teleport to his certain location in the boss room. And I forgot to get the fireball, but when you go back to the boss room and try to shoot him, the projectile will get destroyed immediately. Boom, right there. And there's it also using 200 mana at once, so I went ahead and fixed that bug. So if we head back into the game, we will be able to see that the fireball shoots pretty far now until it gets destroyed on something. And I can actually show that off in the actual boss fight as well. So let's go ahead and challenge the boss. He's up in the same spot, so boom. Doesn't get destroyed instantly, boom. And then he goes back down to his regular phase where we can go and defeat him. So for these two issues, they kind of go hand in hand, so I'll go over both of them at the same time. The first issue is a bug, and here you can see I wrote, when the player goes near the boss in his raining hell phase, a bunch of errors pop up. And so here I documented everything, and we have a video that shows that. But this also leads me into my next issue, which is, as the player, I want to be restricted from jumping above the boss in his raining hell phase so I can't break the game. And in here we have the obvious completion criteria of either removing the ledge or to raise it higher, and I chose to raise it higher. So let me go ahead and show the video that showcases both of these issues. So here we are in the boss room again. He's going to teleport into his raining hell phase, and in the old build the player would be able to come up here, defeat the enemy, and jump above the boss. There was actually supposed to be a drop down mechanic which got taken away from the game, but when you're able to just jump on the boss's head, and it would pop up a bunch of those errors. Alright, so we're going to challenge the boss again, and this time we're going to do the fight how it's supposed to be played. Ouch, ouch, leave me alone, ouch. Get him while he's trying to go back. And so here we're in the same position. This time we're not able to jump up above the boss, so if we're not able to get to the boss, then there are no errors, of course. But either way, the bug has been fixed, and if we, ouch, go ahead and just defeat him normally. Boom, boom, ouch. Use the fireball, finish him off with style points. Nice. So there's that taken care of. Alright, so this next task that I worked on is a big one because we've tackled this issue throughout a few sprints, so I kind of tagged in on this one. The task is to work on sticking the player to moving platforms. So I didn't really do much for this one because it was my other teammate who already parented the player to the moving platform itself. So that was already set for me. I just had to figure out why he was not sticking. So let me go ahead and show that off in the game. And here's our first elevator. So the main thing here is that the player is parented and he's able to go up and down with the platform, so long as he's not moving. So it works fine for when he's going up because no matter what, it's going to catch the player. There's a little bit of an issue when he goes down. I think I just need to adjust the collider for it, and that might fix it. But as of right now, as long as you're not moving, you are parented to the moving platform. And then we have another elevator here where it does the same thing. We get attached to the elevator and it's doing the same thing when we go down. And then the main area that has our moving platforms, the moving platforms here. And if we jump to this one, we are now attached to it and we're moving along with it. We can jump to the other ones, or we can jump while we're on top of the moving platform, which was an issue I was having before, but now we can jump to each individual platform to continue moving, and that's perfect. So for this next one, I went ahead and reported a bug for the Reaper boss. His damage was kind of off when you were fighting him. That's because the collider for his attack point was really small, so I went ahead and increased it. That way, when you hug the enemy, basically when you're right on top of him, you can still take damage. But let me go ahead and show that off in the game. Alright, so I'm going to challenge the boss yet again, and we're just going to let him attack us. Ouch. Ouch. And ouch. So, honestly, it just feels a bit more consistent when we play, just because increasing that collider really helped with how he does his damage. So I also made him look at the player whenever he attacks. That way, the attacks also, so they connect more, as long as he's looking at the player. And then standing in the no-no zone. So this next bug is pretty simple enough. There was a bonfire that was showing the wrong text. It was saying press F to pick up the item when it should be saying press F to rest at the bonfire. So I can show off that I did change that text. Really simple. Here at the very first bonfire, it is saying press F to rest at the bonfire. And so this also kind of happened with the other bonfires in my level, so fixing this one managed to fix the others. So now they all say press F to rest at the bonfire, as opposed to saying press F to pick up item. So we got press F to rest at bonfire. For these next tasks, they kind of go hand in hand again. They are bug reports, so this is for the boss fight when he enters his raining hell phase. So the projectile from the boss was going through the tombstones, so if you tried to take cover in the tombstones, it would go straight through them. And the chair that's in the room as well, it was going straight through that. So I went ahead and cleaned that up to fix that. Alright, so we're going to challenge the boss yet again. So if we... Ouch. We're going to go ahead and get him into his raining hell phase. Boom, boom, boom. Nice. Alright, so there he is shooting at us. We're going to take evasive maneuvers and hide behind the tombstone. And now it's getting destroyed on impact. If we try to hide behind the chair, getting destroyed on the chair. And we have the tombstone in here as well. It's not going through, it's getting destroyed. So that's another bug fix that I fixed right there. Alright, so we also had another bug report where the boss would walk through the walls whenever the player goes above him. So since I'm already fighting him, I will also show that off here in the game. So when we get him to follow us, if we go above him, he's not going to be able to go through the walls because I set the layers, well, I set the navigation for the walls to not walkable or non-walkable, so he's not able to go through completely. So these next tasks are mainly cosmetic. We are working with the art students to make better assets that look prettier. So I have placeholder prefabs that I created, so I just went in and replaced those with what the art team gave us. So I have tombstones that were placeholders, so I made a quick description to go in and replace those, as well as a lever, which was just a block before. So let me show those off in the game. So in my first level, we basically just have a bunch of tombstones scattered everywhere because this is a cemetery. So I replaced the placeholders with actual tombstone prefabs, which they are just blocks right now, but once we get the materials in, they're going to look even better. We have placeholder coffins as well. Oh, I forgot to put a mesh collider on there, but we have the the art assets themselves, so I went ahead and replaced those. I actually added those in. And then let me show the lever. Also the gates. The gates are also super important. So these gates are by the made by the art team as well. And we have multiple levers in the game, which I still need to add a mesh collider to, but the art team gave them to me in 2 pieces, so I was able to animate it when it's actually interacted with. So if we press F on it to activate, it'll play a sound and it'll actually go down, which is really cool. And mess with the scale of it as well, but we have the animation, and I went ahead and just replaced the placeholder text, so really awesome. On this task, this one was actually kind of a big one as well, because with feedback that I got for my level in general, it seemed like there was a lot of confusion on where to go for a certain part of the level. So what I did is I just made an actual gate that you cannot go through, so that there is no backtracking through my level. To show that off, I'm gonna show exactly what I mean by that. So, alright, and so this is the main room that I am talking about. So before, the lever was stationed over here, and you would be able to open the gate. But I think there was confusion there, because when you open the gate, there's nothing really to do in there. I mean, you get the refill fountain over there, but it just seemed like there was confusion on where to go. So instead, I repurposed the lever to activate the animation for this elevator. So the lever sticks out there. The player knows that they can activate the lift by doing this. Gives them kind of a trail of where to go. If they activate it, they just continue forward. So the completion criteria for that is that the player cannot leave the lift room through the gate. The lever starts the animation for the lift, and the text says press F to activate the lift. It's press F to activate the lift. So this text is different from the other ones where you are supposed to open a gate. So we have that lever text there, that's for the lift, and then the text for opening gates. And this is going to be the last big task that I had. And I say big task, this one was more so a medium one. It could have been high priority, but I wanted to see what the game looked like if I were to add a terrain to the areas in my level. So I went ahead and worked with terrain game object, and the completion criteria I have is the player can't see outside of the level. There's mountains that are surrounding the area, and the player can walk on the terrain. So in my level, there's certain areas that actually show off the terrain, and the player is actually able to walk on the terrain, ignoring that they can get out that gate. That's for the next sprint. The whole area up here is the terrain, which I'm going to paint some textures in. I'll be able to paint dirt in this area, paint cobblestone for the pathway here. So that's the idea with that. And then the really awesome thing that I like with the terrain is I'm able to head up to the very top of my church tower, and then I can just look off into the distance. So this is just for the first area as of right now, but from up here the player can't really see off into the distance. I could probably raise the mountains a little bit more in certain areas, but it's all enclosed in this kind of environment. So that's a task that I worked on as well. Now the rest of my tasks are all low priority things that the game could do without, but you know, it's just nice to have. So one thing I did was I added fire to the Reaper boss's lantern. If we head into the game, I'll just go ahead and teleport straight to the boss room, where we can see in his lantern is a raging fire. And I changed the projectile to actually shoot the fireballs, which you can see most likely throughout the video, but just in terms of showing him shooting it, it just looks pretty cool. We also had some issues with the deflect, the weapon deflect, so I went ahead and added certain layers to certain game objects. It was the gates and the tombstones that mainly had this issue. Right, so before the player was able to just swing straight through the tombstones, but now they have the weapon deflect script on them, and when the player goes to hit it, it deflects off, just like the walls. I'll show an example wall here, just surfaces in general. And it was exactly the same for the animated gates that I have over here. The player was able to just swing straight through them, but now, boom, weapon deflect script, and you can't hit through the gate for some realism. And the very last cosmetic thing that I'm going to be talking about, this is the last task that I worked on, is just adding a staircase to the first area here, because super importantly, there is the fireball spell. If the player were to miss it, and they needed to backtrack, before there weren't any stairs here, which was just a blunder on my part, but I just went ahead and added the staircase so the player can get back into the room, pick up the fire spell if need be. So that's the very last task that I worked on. So that's what I worked on for the first milestone in the last month of our final project. I'm really excited to see how the next and final milestone of school will turn out. And with that, I'll pass it on to my next teammate.